Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Gaming History. Today, we're going to be talking about the Oregon Trail. Now, the Oregon Trail is an edutainment video game which most people, if you went to school during the 1980s till now, you've probably played at some point. I, for the most part, have also played it during my elementary school days. And today, we're going to be talking about the origins of the Oregon Trail. Now, the Oregon Trail actually goes back all the way to 1971. As in the year 1971, there was a man known as Don Rawitch. Now, Don Rawitch was an 8th grade history teacher, and he decided to come up with a better way to teach his kids 8th grade history, and particularly they were learning about the Oregon Trail, and so he decided to make a game based off of it. Now they got help from a few people. He got the help from two people particularly. These were Paul Dillenberger and Bill Heineman. Now, Bill Heineman, Paul Dillenberger, and Don Rochester worked together to make the Oregon Trail. The Oregon Trail debuted on December 3rd, 1971. Now, initially, this original version of the Oregon Trail did not have any sort of graphics, and it was not displayed on a computer screen, but was rather displayed on a teleprinter and a paper tape terminal, as it was all printed out on text and paper instead of being graphically shown on a computer screen, as those weren't really much of a thing in most schools at this point in time. Now the game was extremely popular upon its initial release, and it was actually playable for people outside of his classroom, as the game was hooked up to the mini computer time sharing network that was run by the Minneapolis Public School District, which he was teaching at. And time sharing network they had of computers allowed them to other people to play the game outside of his classroom. Now, at the end of the semester, the game was deleted from the system, but he did keep the original code. And 3 years later, in 1974, he was hired by the Minnesota Education Computing Consortium, and he took that original code from 1971 and retyped it, though he did make some changes to it and improvements to the game. And this changed version of the game was released the following year in 1975 under the title of just Oregon, and it was available for all schools which were part of the timeshare network that the game was available on, and it was extremely popular as it would get thousands of players every single month, and it continued to be popular throughout the 1970s, and there was even a sequel made in the later half of the 70s called Oregon 2, and throughout many years, and for most of the 1970s, it was simply known as Oregon. It was only called The Oregon Trail upon its original 1971 release, and it was ported to various computers. Now, the most well-known computer port of the Oregon Trail was made in the year 1985, when it was ported to the Apple II computer. The Apple II computer port had upgraded and improved graphics, such as having color, and had more playability and more interaction, as there were shooting sections where you had to go out into the woods and shoot animals such as deer, elk, rabbits, and various other animals that lived in the area, something that was not available in previous versions of the Oregon Trail. And this is the version where it reverted its title to the original name, the Oregon Trail, instead of just being Oregon. And this game was extremely popular, and many schools used it to teach their children about the Oregon Trail. My school did, and my school did, and many other schools did. Now, this is the most well-known version, but the game has continued to be ported and remade on the various consoles over and over again throughout the years. So now, over the years, several sequels have been made to the Oregon Trail. The first sequel to the Oregon Trail was made in the year 1993 with the game The Amazon Trail, where you had to make your way through the Amazon. The following year, 1994, was the Yukon Trail, which was about the Yukon gold rush in British Columbia, Canada, and the people that went to go there, and you had to get to where the mine was, as opposed to Oregon, as in the Oregon Trail. Then in 1995, there was Maya Quest, the Mystery Trail, which dealt with the Mayans, a pre-colonization civilization that lived in Latin America. And then the African Trail, released the same year, which had to do exploring Africa this time. But everybody knows the Oregon Trail. Most people know it for the line, "You have died of dysentery," as that was a actual frequent thing that happened on your trail to many people. And to this day, it is the probably different versions of from the Apple II are still being used to teach children across America how the Oregon Trail went and the many difficulties, hardships, and trials our ancestors went through to help build this country. But that's all I gotta say for today, folks. That's the story of the Oregon Trail. The video game, at least. The video game. Anyways, I'll see y'all around. Well, bye next time.